Discovering possibilities and potential with passion every day. This is a TPPN production. Welcome to the iPad Possibilities Podcast, episode number 89, A FaceTime Future. This podcast is sponsored by GadgetFreeway.com. Check out all of their amazing gadgets and accessories for your iPad at GadgetFreeway.com, including the anti-glare protector, the iPad case bag, and the iPad pillow. Lots of great stuff. Check it all out at GadgetFreeway.com. I'd like to thank them once again for supporting this podcast. And let's get on to the show for today. This is a live show every Sunday night, and I'm here today with John Finnan. How are you doing tonight? Absolutely great, Tim. How are you doing? I'm doing great. It's been a long, busy day. I'm glad to be back at the desk doing some podcasting, though. And a lot of news this week. So basically the format this week, normally we have this focus topic, but today it's going to be a bunch of news, some feedback, and some different thoughts and different things. So let's just jump into it. I ran across in the forums over Mac Rumors that the iPad case, they've updated it to include a cleaning cloth, which I thought was kind of interesting. I'm not sure if this is official or not, or if it's actually happened, but that's the rumor, I guess. Have you heard about this or seen this yet? I hadn't, but that's good news. I know a lot of people have started to complain or did complain when Apple did away with cloths and whatnot, and and certainly the iPad needs it. Unless you get a Gadget Freeway anti-glare screen protector. Yep. But, no fingerprints with those. Yep. Yeah. So it'd be good if they did include it. Yeah, that was kind of interesting. It's like, oh, that's a little minor tweak. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. But anyways, yeah, that's a quick thing. Last week we were talking about iPads shipping in 24 hours. Well, evidently iPads got more popular since then, and it's 1 to 3 days now. So it's kind of interesting. They've been ramping up production, and so still they can't keep up with the 24-hour ship time. So just kind of interesting, you know. Yeah, it's showing that indeed the iPads are still very, very popular, and we haven't seen a significant slack off of demand, even though they've ramped up the supply. So. Yeah, and along with that, the rumors keep on coming that Apple is still going to be updating this iPad before, next year, holiday season of FaceTime-capable iPads. And I'm not sure if I buy this rumor. I have to believe that the original iPhone, right, it was announced in January of 2007. It didn't ship till June. And ever since then, they've been shipping out iPhones every June. And people are saying there's going to be a new iPad in January because that's when they announced it. But I think it'll be an April launch or a March launch. They'll have some monthly launch that's not in January. And I'm still not buying this FaceTime-capable iPad. And I don't know, they may do it and they might not really announce it too much. It might just be a subtle, like, ooh, it has a camera now. It might be like a 1.5. What do you think about this? Well, first off, I would say that Apple is not big on subtle launches unless you're talking about just kind of like little speed bumps for their Macs that have remained fairly unchanged for years. Yeah. So and with the iPad still being a new product, I would say I would not expect a subtle change. They just don't change it over on the website. Oh, we got a camera now. Particularly because Apple should probably, if they don't, they should start feeling a little bit of competition from some of these other tablets that we're starting to see roll out. And, so far I haven't seen anything that I think, will be an iPad killer, if you will. But still, anything that takes ammunition or wind out of the sails of the competition. Oh, they don't have that. They don't have that. Is something that Apple wants to make sure people know about. Yeah, for sure. And I have to believe they're going to add more than just a camera for this next generation iPad. I think they're going to, get the display more Retina-like. If it's not a true Retina, it'll be better. I think it won't be just FaceTime. That'd be kind of a downer upgrade if all they did was add FaceTime-capable, iPads. Do you think we'll have more in this next gen? Well, I think that we will. I think that... right now I think they're focused on
getting out the iOS 4.2 and really making sure that that works well with the current hardware. And, behind closed doors, they're probably going to be checking it out with the new hardware. So I, again, don't anticipate anything before the holidays. I think it's still a new enough product that Apple's going to sell the heck out of it throughout the holidays. And, we'll see one later after the new year sometime.
Yeah.
And, and it'll have something significant. It won't just be a camera.
Yeah.
It may be, a camera and some nifty, neat new opening of software to do something nifty, neat with the current hardware. I don't know, but, it will certainly be something more than just adding a camera to it.
Yeah, I think so. And the iPad is still hot in Apple stores. It's, new people are coming across iPads in Apple stores and being taught, the different things that you can do with it, and people just being blown away with the current generation of them. So, yeah, I think it's a little early for an update. And when we're talking about FaceTime stuff, I wanted to just share my thoughts on how amazing this email system of using FaceTime is with the iPod Touch. It's pretty amazing because you just enter your email address. Apple, emails you to verify it. And the cool thing is you can have multiple email addresses per account. So I can have my business email with my personal email. So I don't have to tell all the people my personal email account if I don't want them to have it or something like that. And I think it's just phenomenal. I think once the iPad gets that, it'll be pretty cool. And I think, they'll eventually try to get rid of this need of video. They'll try to bypass the need of AT&T to do voice calls and just do it all themselves with VoIP. Do you think that's a future that we'll see?
Well, I certainly think that we're moving, into VoIP being a common thing for non enterprise, people. And up to this point, VoIP has very much been kind of an enterprise thing or a business thing. And I think we'll see more and more as connectivity becomes more and more prevalent. So, one, I think we're going to need to see 4G rolling out. I think that's probably the enabling technology to really get VoIP out there for everyone. Once 4G is out, I think carriers are going to have problems trying to sell to smartphone users a voice line, if they can do everything over 4G.
Is that because you think there's too much latency over a 3G network? Is that what it is?
Well, certainly there's latency and there's just usage, just sheer usage. So I think there's a perceived limitation in 3G. I mean, 3G is great for me, but I think there's a perceived limitation in 3G, and I think that's one of the things that 4G will really make people consider moving everything over to a data network.
Yeah, it'll be interesting over the next decade to see will we be paying for voice minutes anymore, or will just all be data. I mean, I don't know, it's cool to think about, but. Along with, using data and voice and all that jailbreak news, Cydia, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, acquires Rock, which is the other app store for, your jailbroken iPad or iPhone. And that's a big thing because it's like a unification basically of this jailbreak platform where you don't have to worry about which store you use. It's just all in the same app now, basically, is my take on it. I think that's what's going to happen. Did you read up on this much?
No, I didn't. Although, I was wondering if you have any idea, I know that not everything and probably very few things this day and age are free in the Cydia store. You're paying for a lot of these apps.
Yeah, there's quite a bit free still.
Is there?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, do you know what the model is for Cydia making money on that? Is it similar to like the App Store where they take a cut out of everything, or I'm just wondering, if Cydia is buying Rock, what their financial situation is.
Right. I know you are able to buy stuff out of there. I'm not sure if they get a percentage of that. And that there is an advertising platform within the Cydia app, so ads they make money from, I'm guessing. And then with Rock's mainly for the paid apps. That's where, the $20 MyWi 4.0 that I'll talk about later is held. And they do a lot of license managing within the Rock app. The other managing they do within Cydia is basically your Google email address identifies you, and that's how you decide if you own something. So, I'm not sure what their process of making money with this is. I know ads are a part of that. They might get a cut from developers for just showing your app there, but I'm not entirely sure on that.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting with this unification going on. Apple's becoming more open. This week they actually basically told developers that we're opening up all of our guidelines for publications to you. You're actually going to be able to write apps in, I think, Flash and some other of the developing platforms that can get your apps on different devices such as Android and Palm or whatever. Probably not Palm, but they're opening it up. Is this big news? You're a developer. Is this big news to you, or?
Yeah, this is phenomenal news and answers a lot of the bad mouthing that Apple has received. Two things out of it. One is that they published some guidelines for application submittal, and kind of put down on paper some of the things that were kind of known from watching rejections and doing different things, and actually reading between the lines of previous documents, user interface guidelines and various other documents that Apple puts out. You could kind of read most of this stuff in by either those documents or actions that Apple has taken. Certainly they're focused on keeping things clean, keeping porn out of the store and that type of thing, and a number of other things. But it's really good to have something. They've certainly left a lot to be, it still leaves a lot of gray area, which I think is important. I think that they need to be able to be adaptable and modify things as different things come up. But, I think it takes the wind out of the sails of people who were objecting to Apple being arbitrary, because I don't think they're being arbitrary. I think they're just following these general kind of rules, and different situations come up that aren't specifically covered, and they make a decision, and hopefully now they can be a little bit more consistent with those kind of decisions. The other thing is that this did open up with a new contract. It opens up some of the restrictions that they put around the third-party application development tools, and that in itself is was a big bone of contention for a lot of people. I hope that what it doesn't mean is that people are going to start trying to use Java or whatever it is, Flash, whatever, and try to create, a generic application that's going to go across platforms. Because time and time again, it's proven that people buy a platform for certain capabilities or certain UI, and that, you're not, if you're trying to put the same thing across on every platform with the same code, you're not exploiting the differences in those platforms. So, what it will do is it'll give people the ability to create a base, and then to customize that base for each platform. So, it'll be good. It means that there's a lot more developers that might have not gone to the iPhone just because they felt like they were being too restricted, and now they'll give it a shot. So,
yeah. And the wording here, is this your take? It's going to actually be, they're more open about what their standards are, but it looks like their standards have risen. Like, it'll be harder to get certain types of apps in the store, but easier to get ones that were just stupidly rejected, like Google Voice. So here's a quote. "We have over 250,000 apps in the App Store. We don't need any more fart apps." So that's sounding like they're going to they want good apps in there now. They're going to let you develop on Java, but it has to be as good as, the native way. Is that what it's sounding like to you?
Well, and it will all remain to be seen how strict they enforce these things. But what it does mean is that we will see hopefully an increase in the level of sophistication of the apps, or at least being a little bit more professional. They state in there somewhere else that an app needs to do something useful, and not just like a fart app would today, just do the same thing that a bunch of other apps do. So, that's all good, because there are just too many apps in there that do the same exact thing, and it'd be one thing if there was a unique way of doing it. And actually, I think speaking of fart apps, I wrote a review about one that was doing something a little bit unique, but having the same functionality in a 20 or 30 or 40 apps is just cluttering up the store from people seeing really innovative apps.
Yeah.
So I think that's all.
The wording's kind of interesting. It sounds like Steve Jobs sort of wrote this letter, the guidelines himself. It says, if we have lots of serious developers who don't want all the apps surrounded by amateur hour. The wording is just like, I don't know. It sounds like Steve Jobs a little bit with some of these.
Yeah, well, maybe we've discovered that there is somebody there that writes all Jobs email responses. But the point is that I think both of these things were very good for the App Store and for developers, and for consumers in the end, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they also addressed this thing about why there are parental settings on the iPhone, but that doesn't make it right for there to be porn in the App Store. And the reasoning he was given here is we have lots of kids downloading lots of apps, and parental controls don't work unless the parents set them up. Many don't. So we know that we're keeping an eye out for the kids. So even though they recognize, hey, we've got parental controls, they recognize parents don't use them that much. So that's still why you're not going to see all the dirty stuff in there.
Yeah, and that's something that we've kind of known, but now they've come out and stated it.
Yeah, they kind of said it's like, good. Oh, that's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good stuff. And one of the most exciting things about this is I'm a huge Google Voice user, and I've had to use web apps and jailbroken iPhones in the past to do it. But I've been following some tweets from the GV mobile developer who had one of the best iPhone Google Voice apps in the store originally. And he's been talking to the guys over the App Store, and it may come back soon, like within a couple weeks here. He has to resubmit it and all that kind of stuff. But it sounds like it might go through, and that also might mean you might have a native iPad version finally. So that's kind of exciting for me.
Yeah, I think that's very exciting that some of these apps get a second chance, and that all revolves around the whole review board, which was also mentioned in this thing. So, I don't know if how well this review board may have existed prior to this, but now they've actually said that there is a review board, and if your app is rejected, you have the opportunity to go through reviews. So, what that will hopefully mean is that the apps that are rejected by mistake or by some stupidity or something, will get a second chance and can have maybe cooler heads or somebody a little bit more reasonable looking at it to say, yeah, okay, that's really an all right app.
And another thing, this time around, they'll be able to point out, because you're looking at the same document as far as the guidelines, they'll be able to say, point 912 or 9, whatever. This is why it's rejected. They won't just say some just generic thing that doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely.
So cool. And then I want to talk about two apps that are coming to the iPad very soon that are pretty cool apps. The first is Mac Journal, and that's on the iPhone right now, but they're going to do a big upgrade to it. It's basically a journaling and blogging platform. So I'll do a review of it when it comes out, because I think that'll be a good journal to have on there. Have you played with Mac Journal on the Mac at all?
Yeah, I have used it in the past. My wife uses it now, but I think it's a good product on the Mac, and I look forward to seeing it on the iPad.
Would that be a compelling product if it's sunk to the Mac, and then you'd be able to integrate with WordPress? And would that be like a better way to interact with WordPress than the iPad, maybe?
I think it very well could be. Very well could be.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. So I'm excited for that to come out. And then even the bigger one, I think, VLC. Now, a lot of geeks and people that are in the video stuff are big VLC fans because it plays anything. Anything you throw a VLC, it plays. So no matter where you get it, what source, it plays it. So it's coming to the iPad, which is cool because we had that one app. What was it called that played the AVI files?
Yeah.
It was
I
like
remember.
the X. I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah, but it didn't
find it.
do the best of job playing back those files. So I'm very excited to get VLC because
Cine X Player.
Cine X Player, yeah, that's right. Because we were all excited about that, but it didn't work out as well. So I'm hoping VLC will fix this and we'll be able to sync, AVI files and some other formats to the iPad, which would be pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
And I'm also kind of curious because VLC on the Mac does optical audio out. I'm curious if we'll finally get 5.1 on our iPads. I don't know. I'm optimistic.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm thrilled to hear that. Very, very thrilled to hear that. I'm a big VLC fan on the Mac, so I'm looking forward to it on the iPad.
Yeah, it's kind of surreal because these are like different things that I thought Apple would never ever support. It's like we want you to play the Apple format, so it's exciting news. And Airplay. I want to talk a little bit of Airplay. It's just kind of cool stuff. In November we'll have Airplay, which allows you to basically have your iPad in your hand, press a button, it's playing on your Apple TV. And now receivers are going to start doing this, and standalone docks, for your iPhone or whatever will do this. So Denon announced their receivers will start to add AirPlay support, which is pretty amazing because you can hook up some high quality speakers to those things.
Yeah, definitely. That's really kind of gives a lot of justification to Apple's AirPlay.
And yeah, we've been able to do similar stuff with Bluetooth, but this will just be dead simple. You just press a button, it's on. You don't have to pair or anything stupid, and I think that's exciting. Do you know? I don't think Apple's announced this, but is it just audio? Will video be allowed to be sent to a receiver to play back? Because that would be even cooler, I think.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. The reason it's called AirPlay now instead of AirTunes is that it does include video.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the basic change. So will Apple allow third parties to start to use the video? That's a good question, and I would hope they would. I think that they're trying to make this, kind of more of an open standard, and they need support from other parties to make it really an open standard, not just an Apple thing.
Yeah, imagine a television set with AirPlay with video, just built into it. That'd be sweet. Yeah. So I'm excited about AirPlay and still waiting for hopefully next week we'll have the betas to play with. But it's coming up to start playing and testing out this stuff. Do you have any more thoughts on AirPlay or how it's going to affect your usage of the iPad as far as will you be storing more video on it now that it'll have AirPlay, syncing content to it?
Well, I think I will, and certainly, I'm looking at potentially getting one of the new Apple TVs, which is all about AirPlay, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
I think once I have one of those sitting in, and I have AirPlay on the iPad, it's just going to be a wonderful world.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jobs said customers don't want to manage their hard drive space anymore. And it appears that if you want to manage your hard drive space, you just sync stuff to your iPad and manage it there to stream from there now.
Yep.
So, as far as managing hard drive space, Hyperdrive is a product that's coming for the iPad, and it basically allows you to add 120 gigabytes to 750 gigabytes worth of storage as like an external drive for your iPad that you hook in via the USB camera connection kit. And what it sounds like is you'll just copy files as you need them to your iPad and delete them when you're done with them. Is this a compelling product, or would you rather have a wireless anywhere you go drive that you're able to remote? And I don't know. Is this compelling to you at all?
Well, it is compelling for actually a couple of reasons. One is that this is able to use the camera connection kit. So you hook up to it. It does some clever stuff to get around the 32 gigabyte limit that is imposed there on the iPad with the camera connection kit by creating folders. So you really have a lot of storage on this thing. And being a amateur photographer who gets a lot of size of images from my camera, when I go out, it's a great deal in that this becomes not only one of those portable discs that I can back up my compact flashcards to, but then I can still view them in the iPad, even though they're probably going to take more than 32 gigabytes, if I'm on more than a couple of days worth of a trip.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting thing. The other thing is kind of nostalgic for me. I'll have to give you this story. Years and years ago, I'm showing my age here, but the original Fat Mac came out, and I got a Fat Mac, and I got a Hyperdrive hard drive upgrade.
Oh.
There was a company called Hyperdrive back then, and they were one of the first ones to come out with an actual hard drive for the original Macintosh. So instead of using floppy disks, you could actually boot up with a 10 megabyte hard drive.
Huge.
It was huge. But anyway, I spent more for the drive than I did for the Mac at the time, but it was internally mounted, and it was called the Hyperdrive, and it was just the coolest thing back then. But the company didn't last, because shortly after that, Apple came out with the Mac Plus, which had a SCSI interface, so now you could go external, and they kind of shifted over to doing some external stuff. But eventually, it became a very crowded market, and they left the market. But it's just kind of nostalgic to think of hooking a hyperdrive up to my iPad now after all these years.
Does this sound familiar to you? This sounds like, back in the days where to launch an application, you had to put in a new floppy for each. You had to swap in like 10, 20 floppies during the course of a day to work with files. This sounds like when you want to work with your files, you have to copy it to it, you have to delete it afterwards. It sounds like we're going back to that kind of.
Well, I don't think you. Yes, but I think the intent here is really to be able to store the files somewhere, but at least with images, use the iPad as that image viewer, and work with it that way, and obviously work within the limitations of the iPad. That's where the problem is limitations that are there. So.
Okay, so you're saying as a photographer or someone that works with video on the iPad, you have this hyperdrive, which is now your backup drive, basically. Once you're done working with the file, you just store it there, and then does this connect to the Mac as well?
I don't know, but I would be surprised if it did not. I mean, it connects to the iPad through the camera connection kit.
Yeah.
So it's probably looking like any of these other, could look like a 32 gigabyte flash RAM, drive or something. So.
Okay.
So yeah, I would see that this would be ideal for photographers. I guess it comes up to 750 gigabytes. So you could be putting a huge amount of information on there through your cards, because it does seem to have both compact flash and SD readers built into it. So you download that stuff onto there and use the iPad to be able to view and at least any of the JPEG images or previews.
Yeah, and evidently I tried it. I tried the camera connection kit on the Nano. It did not work. It said accessory not supported. So
no dice. It's too bad.
Gave it a shot. It has a dock connector. So
camera connection kit's as big as the Nano.
Yeah, it's probably bigger a little bit. So did you get a chance to check out the new iPad commercial yet? It's the iPad is musical.
I haven't seen that one yet.
It's another commercial I guess they had.
I have not seen that commercial yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's just another simple commercial. It's kind of like, it reminded me of the Nugent commercial once again, but just a different set of things that were showing off. So, you had this topic here on the iPad in the toolbox. So, go through.
Yeah,
here. What's
this was kind of a thought I had over the weekend, and the thinking about it, how can the iPad help in home repair maintenance and kind of the storage of that kind of information? And so, there's obviously being able to, have instructions or schematics easily accessible for assembly or repair. So, and I'll give you this example because it came up for me this weekend, was fixing my kitchen faucet.
Yeah.
So I had a part break in the kitchen faucet. It's like, oh, okay. So, I started finding some schematics on, and I'm in a 5-year-old house, but I don't, it was a new build, and I don't have, they didn't leave me the instruction manual that came with the kitchen faucet. So I didn't even know, what model is this? I could tell who the manufacturer is, but that was about it. And certainly there's no, instructions or anything with it. And so, I started going through and trying to find instructions and figure out what to do about it. And finally I got a schematic, and I was able to, start taking the thing apart, and found the broken part. Can't, have to order the broken part, but at least, it was something I could do. And it occurred to me that, here's a schematic that, I ended up printing it out because I took it to the hardware store with me. But, I thought after the fact, well, why didn't I just print it to the iPad?
Yeah.
And I could have taken it with me. I could have referred to it when I'm under the sink, look at it.
It doesn't get wet and messed up.
Yeah, I mean, I could put it in a Ziploc bag and it'd be pretty protected. And if I was trying to install something and, I had a video for how to install it, then I could play the video on the iPad, and have it right there, right where I was, So to me, I've tried to do some of this stuff in the past with laptops, and, they're better than, a desktop, but they're less than ideal. But the iPad just seems like a perfect device for that type of thing.
Yeah, especially as you can zoom in on the schematics for the part you actually need to look at. That'd be pretty cool.
Exactly. And then in addition to that, it comes back to this whole, model number, owner's manual, all that kind of stuff could be in an iPad and not in, the bottom drawer in the kitchen that you have to go through, 8 dozen owner manuals to look for something. Then I thought back a few weeks ago where I had a chip in the wall in one room, and I repaired it, but I had to go figure out what kind of paint color matched the rest so I could paint the repair. And if I had that kind of information stored in the iPad, where I could just walk up and say, it's I don't know, 39 red, 26 green, or whatever, it would just be phenomenal to be able to do that kind of thing. So,
oh, definitely. That should be instead of giving you all these paper manuals when you, or at least when you move in, just you do it yourself. Well,
I wonder. It seems to me that it would make a lot of sense for companies to, with their paper manual, because obviously a lot of people are still paper-oriented people.
Sure.
But with each of the paper manuals, there should be a big thing in there saying, go to this place on our website and download PDFs of all this stuff that you can store. And, and the smart people out there will be storing them on their iPad or accessible on the cloud from their iPad or something.
Yeah, definitely. And I think most companies do this with the PDFs. They just don't make it the most obvious thing in the world.
Yeah, they don't make it obvious, and that's the big thing.
Cool. Any other thoughts on this? I think it's a great idea, and something when I'm a homeowner, I will definitely be, as I do now, converting stuff to digital and finding the digital copies and doing all that kind of good stuff. But I think that's pretty cool. Any other final thoughts on this here?
No, I think that pretty much covers my thoughts.
Okay, cool.
Just a good thing to do if you're an iPad owner and a homeowner, or even not. I mean,
Car
you know,
owner, you know.
car owner, you should think about putting those things there. They're certainly easier to find and get to.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move on to the feedback section here. I had 2 pieces of feedback, and for Nightstand, I actually had voicemail and email. So I'm gonna play back the voicemail first here, and here we go. It's a minute long.
Hi, Tim. It's Sonia. I just listened to IPP 0088 about updates galore. I'm one of those people who bought Nightstand for our iPhone when it first came out, and mine never rolled over to being the universal app for iPad and iPhone. So am I confused that the original one that was not called Nightstand HD does not roll over and become the universal iPad, iPhone, Nightstand HD? Do I have to purchase the Nightstand HD now and pay for it, or should it have rolled over into being the Nightstand HD? Please let me know in the next show. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, cool. And I've been looking into this, and I actually can't find the original Nightstand app, as I think she pointed out, and at least in the email I got as well. Another person, I got the original Nightstand, not HD, and they couldn't find it anymore. They couldn't find the iPhone version and didn't upscale or anything. So I emailed the developers, and I'm still waiting to hear back. And on the next show, or whenever I hear back from them, I'll let you guys know. I think it'd be. Is this something that would be? I think it'd be pretty bad if they just stopped developing for it and just say buy the new app, even though you paid for this a while ago. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, unfortunately, that's what a number of developers did, and I'm not sure exactly why they did that. But yeah, a number of developers did, and maybe it's that they started creating their HD version, and then they realized that they shouldn't just sell an HD version; they should make it universal. But they now had it named HD, and consequently, it was a different app than the original app, and that's really the issue. Is that the App Store doesn't have a great amount of flexibility in dealing with changes to apps. Mm-hmm. For instance, and it's good and bad. But for instance, there have been several cases where a company has bought an app from another company, and they've had to redo the app in the App Store, and all the purchasers of the previous app were out of luck. They had to buy the new app again because it was now a new app according to the App Store. It wasn't the same old app.
There's no way to merge apps either.
No, there isn't. And so transfer of ownership has been an issue. I think I vaguely remember that Apple has done something recently that made that a little bit smoother, but transfer of ownership, just changing the name is a potential issue. So there are a lot of issues. Now, the good thing is that for users that you are getting free updates on any app that keeps being updated, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the blessing of this thing where they're tracking that name. So a developer can't continue to use the same name and start charging you for the upgrades. Not yet. I know that there are a lot of developers who would like to see that happen.
I think we'll see it next year. I think we'll see a paid updates versus free updates area.
There certainly might be. I as a developer, I have pros and cons with it because there are a lot of minor tweaks that it would probably be an issue if you had to upgrade that. I mean, people like to just have the newest software and not have to worry about paying for it.
Yeah, and I think it could be for the major point releases, because I know a lot of developers just, let's write a brand new app, and there was an outrage when people they wrote a brand new app because there's no way to do this. I think they've got to realize that, with major version numbers that are significantly different, they'll Apple will eventually address this.
Yeah, and what Apple has to do is be able to determine whether somebody previously owns an app so that they can charge less for an upgrade than for a whole outright purchase, right? And so that's probably really the key. And once we have that, then that would be a good thing. And certainly maybe there'll be other things like companies that have Mac software could be offering discounts on the iPad or iPhone version of their app as well, and that would be good around.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned how people get free updates for software they purchased. And I'm not sure if you listened to the previous show, but Cro-Mag Rally came out in 2008. They just updated it to Universal iPad app. That's amazing. They've been updating this thing and making it all better, and that just blows me away.
No, I mean, I think the difference with iPhones and iPads is that as a developer, you're interested in attracting new users. You're not so much concerned about trying to get money from existing users. I mean, certainly some games are, and that's what in-app purchase is all about, is to kind of get more revenue from your existing user base. But really the idea is to get more users, a bigger user base, and attract more people. And so that's what your upgrade is doing, or should be, I think, in a healthy environment, is to be attracting these new users, and the old users are benefiting. The old users gave you their money before and actually helped fund the new stuff. So, it all comes around.
Yeah, definitely. So and as I said, I'll let you guys know when I hear from them. In the meantime, you can. If it was me, I would probably contact the developer, ask, hey, I already purchased this app. Here's my receipt or whatever from iTunes. Can you give me a promo code for a free version of this app? Or I don't know. I might contact the developer and ask, They might be willing to do that. So give it a shot.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt.
So, the next bit of feedback is episode request. It's on journalism. So here we go. And I'll play back now. Let me load it up here.
Hi, Tim. This is Joel. I was wondering if you could do a podcast on journalists. I'm sort of a photographer, writer, and I was wondering how to use my iPad to keep track of my photos and also my stories and contacts and all that stuff, to try to put together a photo story for some magazine, for example. And I'm sure that other people would be interested in that as well. Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Cool. Well, I will definitely be doing that. And I'm not sure. Do you want to do this for the live show next week, John, as the major topic of the week?
That sounds great. I'm certainly into photography and writing as well. So I'd certainly be interested in what we can discover between the two of us.
Yeah, cool. Because I know you're in photography and stuff. So I thought, what a better person to ask than so John, help out with this.
Sure.
I do take photos, but I'm not a big photo guy. And the camera connection kit is definitely a good tool for a journalist to have. So in the meantime, think of a camera connection kit.
Definitely. Hey Tim, that makes me think that maybe what we should also do is look at doing an episode with the National Novel Writing Month coming up in November. Maybe over the next few weeks, we should look at looking at different tools for somebody to maybe go into that month-long novel writing thing with the iPad. And,
definitely.
So let's look at that as well.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I know you write and all that, so you're up in familiar with all that kind of stuff. I had no idea that was coming up. Except actually I did. You mentioned it one time. Anyways, yeah. So that's the feedback of the week, and I'd love more feedback. More feedback is great, and I'd love to do more episode requests and do shows on those. So call in. You can call in the 209-542-iPad. That's 4723. So just call and leave your voicemail. I'd love to hear from you guys. And send your questions, concerns, or if you want an episode that you want me or John to do, or both of us or whatever, let us know. I'd love to hear from you guys. And let's move on to the final section before the picks of the week. And this is what I call expecting more. And this is what I mean by it here. So iPad 4.2 coming out in November. The only thing they add is printing. And iOS 4 has been out to the general public since June. So it takes Apple 6 months to get an iPad clone, and all they do is add printing. Why do you think this has taken Apple so long to do? Is it a hard thing to port this to the iPad? Is it a different code base, or what's going on?
Well, so, and this is, I must preface by saying is purely my speculation. But, I mean, remember that we're not going like the iPhone from 4.1 to 4.2. Mm-hmm. For the iPad, we're going from 3.2 to 4.2, right? So
yeah. That's another... It's interesting. We go to 3.2 to 4.2.
Well,
are we going to go 5.2 after this, or do you think we'll finally be in a point-by-point release?
I think what happened here, and essentially Apple had to do some changes to iOS for the iPad, but they weren't ready to do those for the iPhone, for the installed base of iPhone. Mm-hmm. So what they did was kind of split the code base, and 3.1 on the phones and touches, and 3.2 on the iPad. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, they weren't ready to get everybody involved with 4.0 for the iPad.
Yeah,
there had been too much differentiation between the two versions, and there were probably a lot of complexities behind the scene to say we want one version to run on everything. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to hold up the iPhone 4.
Yeah,
we're going to release iPhone 4.0 or iOS 4.0 for the iPhone, and we're going to hold off on giving that to the iPad. And so that's what they did. What I think at some point in the development cycle in the last 6 months, somebody discovered that there were some more difficulties than they anticipated with really bringing the iPad into this version. And maybe it was printing. Maybe they said at the last minute, it makes no sense to bring iOS 4 to the iPad without printing. So we need to add that. But we're already in the midst of 4.1 because we need to get that out for the iPhone for the problems with the 3G being so slow and the proximity sensors and all the other stuff that 4.1 was really addressing, which were bug fixes.
Do you think the bugs in the iPhone held up iPad development a little bit?
I think they could have. They definitely could have. I've heard many stories of where the highest priority project pulls resources from other projects at Apple, and so it could be that they said, all right, well let's instead of the stuff that we're doing with printing and everything else for getting the iPad on iOS 4, calling that 4.1, let's call that 4.2, and let's go ahead and put out a 4.1 that fixes all these iPhone problems, and that may delay the 4.2 for a month or two, but it gets those problems dealt with on the iPhone 4. So, Apple has only so many resources. And so I don't think we can think of only getting printing in 4.2. I think we can really say, what are we getting in 4.2? We're getting the iPad on iOS 4. That's the thing. And iPhones get printing out of it, and that's what they get from 4.1 to 4.2, but the iPad gets everything in 4.0. Mm-hmm. And so, but I think they've discovered a way to, and it may be because they now have, 3 different devices with different resolutions. They've got the older iPhones and the older, touches with one resolution, the newer models with the Retina display with another resolution, and then the iPad with a third resolution. So, I think that they've gone ahead and put everything that you needed to put in to deal with the fact that you have 3 different devices, and so now hopefully we'll roll together with all the updates from here on out.
Yeah, I think this is the same reason Apple TV is not running apps, because they just didn't have the manpower to do it yet.
Yeah, I think Apple is going to be cautious there. they
want to take it slow. Yeah.
They want to take it slow, and they tend to be a cautious company, and what they wouldn't want to do is open it up to a slew of apps and then have all kinds of problems with their partners on whether media should be allowed to be there or not, or I think they just need to take it slow, and maybe, I mean, it is still a hobby. Maybe they're waiting to see what the early adopters actually do or try to make this thing do, and then they could determine what the best things.
Yeah, perhaps the jailbreakers will lead the way on the Apple TV as well.
Yeah, I'm really hoping to see a jailbreak on that pretty soon, and see what's capable of being done with that device.
Yeah. Do you think final question? Do you think we will finally have the iPad and iPhone on a feature parity level at 4.2? Like when we go to 4.3, will it take the iPad another 2 months to get it, or do you think we're finally there where the Apple took the months to figure out how do we get this on the same level where it's easy to develop both at the same time? Is 4.2 fixing that, you think?
I think 4.2 is fixing that. I think we will not see a problem with different versions on different devices.
Okay.
I think iOS will be iOS across everything.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's kind of interesting right now because 3.2 is sort of like a mersion between 4 and 3 because it's got the file sharing stuff that's highlighted in 4 and
yeah, it was like, hey, we're planning all these things for 4.0. We're not ready to roll out 4.0 for a few months, but we need to get the iPad out.
Yeah.
And so consequently, we're going to make these things work in 3.2. They won't work for the iPhone or the Touch. Those will have to stay on 3.1, but we'll give the iPad some of these features. And in doing that, it made it that much more difficult to bring those code bases back together again. So
yeah, it's like a weird hybrid. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. So enough of that. iPad 4 is coming out pretty soon. 4.2. Yeah. Let's go on the picks of the week and all that. Do you have any picks lined up, or do you want me to start off the picks tonight?
I just I didn't look at a lot of new picks this week, but I'm gonna have to go back to an old tried and true that's been mentioned on the show a few times, because this last week I really started to use it a whole lot more than I had before, and that's Air Video.
Oh yes.
I'm still, I think it was updated not too long ago, a few weeks ago, a month ago or something. I hadn't used it since that update, but I found myself with some video files that were of an old foreign television show that I really wanted to understand what the heck was happening in the show, and so I wanted to go back and look at these old episodes, and it was just phenomenal not to have to sit and convert them on the Mac and then download the iPad. Since I was watching them at home, it's just like, well, they're on the Mac. Just fire up Air Video and play them on the iPad. And so, phenomenal app. If anybody has an iPad and a Mac, do they have a Windows server? They do, don't they?
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So if you have any kind of desktop or laptop PC and an iPad, you should have Air Video. I just say that.
Yeah. And it's a universal app. And I was actually testing out which of those universal apps actually do video output from the iPhone to the TV. Air Video is one of those, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, cool.
And iTV, remarkably, on the iPhone does video out as well, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
So, my pick of the week is MyY 4.0. Now, if this is a jailbreak app, so, and, check with your carriers. I don't want to get anyone in trouble here, but it is a tethering app. It basically adds the functionality to your iPad, if it's a 3G model, to turn it into a wireless hotspot. And previously I had the original version, which was just an iPhone app that upscaled and did the basic functionality of turning it into a hotspot. But this 4.0, it's a $20 application if you buy it outright. If you're a previous owner, it's only $10, so they cut the cost there. They're good with that, unlike Apple right now with upgrading and stuff. But it's $20, and I have to say it's well worth it. It's $10 for me since I upgrade. I initially paid 10 for it. It adds, iPad universal support. So it looks beautiful on the iPad, no upscaling or anything like that. It's got the original functionality of turning your iPad into wireless hotspot with web security. And you can pick your security and all that good stuff as far as the password and Wi-Fi name. So my Wi-Fi name is tppn.tv, so I can advertise when I'm on the road. And then it's got advanced Wi-Fi options, and so you can choose your Wi-Fi channel now, which is kind of cool if you want to be on your own different channel away from everyone else. You can also, the biggest thing I think that they've added here is the Wi-Fi transmit power. Because before it just had this just standard, it outputted a certain amount, and it drained your battery faster because it was a higher amount. And now you're able to change it from 30% all the way up to 100%. So if you want 100%, you want a really big signal that can reach more areas and things like that, go 100%. But I've been just setting it to 30% because the battery life is phenomenal. It's, very close range, but I just have my iPad in the car with me with my iPod Touch. A battery lasts, I would say, I'm trying to predict. I had it on all of last night, and I think it drained 10% for about 4 hours. It was pretty good. So, good battery life if you turn this stuff down with that. And then they also, just like with the iPhone stuff, they have this USB section where you can turn in MyWi USB. And you can turn on advanced USB, and you can have it bridged to either your Wi-Fi network or your 3G network. So you can actually tether it to your Mac. Say your Mac has a problem getting on the Wi-Fi network for whatever reason, or you're limited to like one device to get on your Wi-Fi network. So this is helpful for, iPad Wi-Fi owners. So you're limited to one device, and you want your Mac and your iPad on there. So you can use MyWi to actually tether via USB that Wi-Fi signal, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if I'd use it that much. So... and then just a couple other things it includes is it actually tells you how much data you're using. It has the number of active users, and I believe you can actually kick people off if you need to. And it actually tells you how fast your battery is draining currently. So mine's going negative 354A. I'm guessing that's amps. And it increases as you use it. And they've also changed, how it tells you if it's tethering right now. So... with those familiar with iPhone tethering, there's this blue bar that flashes when you're using it. They have that option, but they also have the status bar icon, which is just this little icon that tells you you're tethering now, and it uses less battery life that way, and it also gets out of your way because that blue bar can kind of get in the way with using your iPad with some apps. So that's MyWi 4.0. It's a phenomenal application. It enables me to use my iPod Touch on Wi-Fi, all day long. So, sorry that was kind of long, but I wanted to just, go through the full feature set there.
It's great. And someday we'll have those kind of features natively on the iPad, I hope.
Yeah. Have you looked over that's the new, really newly revised terms? I'm guessing MyWi would be excluded from that.
I don't know that it would specifically be that, but it's probably still marginal.
Yeah, definitely. So check it out for jailbreaker. Sorry I didn't have another app for non-jailbreak folks, but it's another reason to jailbreak. So where can people find you, John, on the interwebs and the apps that you write and all that good stuff?
Jay Finnan on Twitter. And that's probably the best place.
Okay, awesome.
What about you, Tim?
I am T-Chattin on Twitter, and also check out all the different podcasts I do at tppn.tv. And for more information on this podcast in particular, just go to iPadPossibilities.com. And let's see. Let's wrap up here with the feedback. If you want to send your feedback, as I said earlier, just 209-542-iPad. Just call in, leave your feedback. Love to hear from you. Or you can email me at iPadPossibilities@gmail.com. And then to support the show, just jump over to GadgetFreeway.com. They've got a lot of just innovative iPad gadgets and accessories that I use on a daily basis and always get questions about when I use them because they're very unique and built for the iPad They're not all of their products are just third-party stuff. They make some stuff in-house, and it's really well designed. So check out all their stuff at gadgetfreeway.com, and that'd be a great way to support this podcast. And I think that wraps up the show here. Got it done in about an hour on spot, so good time in here. And so until next week, when we discuss journaling and all that kind of stuff, this is Tim and John with the iPad Possibilities podcast live. Have a great iPad week.